While Americans are getting crushed by taxes, a tiny group of ultra wealthy people have figured out how to make billions and pay almost nothing. And they're doing it completely legally using strategies that most people don't even know exist. Hey, before we dive in, I gotta be clear about something. I'm not a financial advisor. Everything you're about to hear is purely educational content. Saudi Arabia doesn't have an income tax? Zero. Not 5%, not 10%, zero. You make $1 billion in Saudi Arabia and the government doesn't take a cut. This isn't a glitch in the system. This is how it's designed, and the wealthiest people in the world have figured out how to use this reality to build incomprehensible amounts of wealth while paying almost nothing. But it's not just about living in Saudi Arabia. That's way too simple. The real strategy is way more sophisticated. Let's start with understanding why this even matters. In America, if you make money, you pay tax. If you earn income, capital gains, dividends, anything, the government wants their cut. It's built into the system. You can't escape it completely. You can optimize it, you can minimize it, but you can't make it disappear. But what if you could? What if you could make unlimited money and pay zero tax legally? That's not a hypothetical for the ultra wealthy. That's their reality. And it starts with understanding how money actually moves. Here's the key insight. Taxes are jurisdictional. They're only enforceable in the place where they're created. If you make money in Saudi Arabia can't tax you because they don't tax income. If you make money in the US, America taxes you. So the strategy becomes obvious. Make money outside of taxing jurisdictions and store it there. Let's talk about how this actually works in practice. A wealthy Saudi investor sets up a company, not in Saudi Arabia necessarily, but somewhere strategic. Maybe the UAE, maybe Singapore, maybe a specific jurisdiction designed for this exact purpose. That company starts investing. It buys stocks, real estate, businesses, whatever. The investments make money. Dividends come in. Capital gains compound. The wealth just sits there growing. Now, here's the magic. That wealth isn't being taxed by the US because it's not in the US. It's not being taxed by Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia doesn't tax income. It's in this legal gray area where nobody's claiming it. The investor lives partially in Saudi Arabia, partially in other non-taxing jurisdictions, always staying under the tax radar of any country that would try to claim them. Meanwhile, their wealth is compounding at an incredible rate. 7% a year average stock returns. That 100 million becomes 200 million in 10 years. 200 million becomes 400 million. The exponential growth is insane. An American investor making the same returns is paying capital gains tax every year, getting hit with estate tax plans, dealing with income tax on dividends. They're maybe keeping 60 cents on the dollar. The Saudi investor is keeping $1. And that extra 40 cents compounds too. Over decades, this difference becomes a difference between $1 billion and $1 billion plus several hundred million more. But here's where it gets even more sophisticated. Sovereign wealth funds. These are investment vehicles created by countries themselves. Saudi Arabia has the Public Investment Fund. It's one of the largest investment funds in the world. These funds invest globally. They buy stakes in companies. They invest in real estate. They make money all over the world. And because they're sovereign entities, they have special tax treatment. The money they make internationally isn't taxed by any country because they're technically the country. A sovereign fund is above normal tax law. This is how a country with no income tax ends up with hundreds of billions in foreign investments, all making money tax-free. But individual ultra-wealthy people have learned to mimic this structure. They set up holding companies in tax haven jurisdictions. They move assets through layers of ownership structures specifically designed to obscure the actual owner and confuse tax authorities. They use debt-based financing. They borrow money to make investments, writing off the interest as a business expense while the investments grow tax-free. They use trusts that span multiple countries, creating situations where no single country can claim tax jurisdiction. It's not illegal, it's just complicated. And complicated is expensive. You need teams of lawyers and accountants. You need to know which jurisdictions to use and how to structure things properly. But if you're making billions, spending $1 million on tax planning that saves you $200 million in taxes, that's the best investment you can make. This is why wealth inequality keeps accelerating. It's not just that rich people earn more, it's that they have access to completely different tax systems than normal people. An American making 100 grand pays 25,000 in taxes. That's their reality. A Saudi billionaire making the same percentage returns pays essentially zero because they're operating in a different system entirely. The person making 100 grand is subsidizing the system. The billionaire is outside it. Here's what really gets me though. This isn't shadowy or secret. It's all legal. The rich people doing this aren't hiding. They're just operating in jurisdictions and structures that normal people don't know about. The IRS knows about it. The Treasury Department knows about it. Congress knows about it. They just haven't closed the loophole because many of them benefit from it. So it keeps running. Billionaires keep building wealth in tax-free environments while regular people keep paying. Understanding this doesn't mean you can do it. You probably can't set up a sovereign wealth fund or operate in Saudi Arabia. But understanding that this system exists, understanding that wealth operates on completely different rules at the top, that changes how you think about taxes and fairness. It's not about right or wrong, it's about power. And wealth is power. If you want to understand how the actual wealth building strategies work at every level, how to stop leaving money on the table, hit subscribe. Because this game is rigged in ways most people never see. But knowing the rules changes everything.